हेलो जी. ओके. ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै. ओम शांति शांति शांति. ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. ओम शांति शांति शांति. श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः. ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः. चैतन्यं सर्वगं सर्वं सर्वभूतगुहाशयं यत्सर्वविषयातीतं तस्मै सर्वविदे नमः. That is the 8th verse. ज्ञातुर्ज्ञातिर्हि नित्योक्ता सुषुप्ते त्वन्यशून्यतः जागृज्ञातिस्त्वविद्यातः तद्ग्राह्यं चासदिश्यताम्. स्वरूप ज्ञानस्य निर्विषयत्वं नित्यत्वं च. The Swarupa Jnanam, the consciousness which is one's own nature, our own nature, is Nityam. Consciousness is eternal, Avinashi, Nirvishayatvam, and it is objectless. That was stated. It is awareness is objectless because there is no other awareness, there is nothing else. Basically, because non-duality is the truth, what is this consciousness? There is no such thing as object. But what about objects that we are experiencing? Therefore, sushupte tu anyashunyataha. The experience of sushupti, the deep sleep, is taken as an example to analyze. Sushupte, in the deep sleep state, anya shunyataha, there is no anya there. Nadu tad dvitiyam asti tato anyad vibhaktam yat pashed. Nadu tad dvitiyam asti, there is no dvitiyam in the deep sleep state which he can see. Therefore, nahin drashtuhu drushte viparalopo vidyate avinashitva. Drashtuhu drushte Jnatuhu jnatehe. So drashti of the drashta or jnati of the jnata is the same thing. Drush also means to see, jna means to know or see. So where the Shruti uses the word drushti, here the word jnati is used. Viparalopo navidyate. The jnati, the drishti, the consciousness of the conscious being. The jnata, drashta is a conscious being. The jiva, the individual, Of him, the jnati, drishti, the consciousness of the conscious being. Meaning that the consciousness is the reality of the conscious being. Viparalopo na vidyate, that's called truth or reality, which always is, which cannot be that it is not. Viparalopo na vidyate. It never is that it is not, it never suffers a cessation. Avinashitvat, because it is avinashi, called nitya, avinashi, imperishable. So this is what we learn from the state of deep sleep state. Then what about the Jagrat Swapna? Where there is a Jnata, then Jnaya, and Jnati or Jnanam. All right, there is non-duality in deep sleep, that is experience. How to explain the experience of duality in the other two states? Jagrat jnatistu avidya. That jnati that we have, the consciousness, which is objectful consciousness. The consciousness in waking dream is accompanied by object. The jnati is not mithya, but that it is possessed of object, that there is an object is mithya. And therefore, that because of the mithya object, the consciousness possessed of object also is mithya. Jagrat jnati, the consciousness waking state is thought to be savishayam. The consciousness in deep sleep is known to be nirvishayam. Consciousness in waking is thought to be savishaya. This avidya, the ignorance, brahma, it is a projection, not a reality. In the dream also, atah tad grahyam cha asadishyatam. So therefore grahyam meaning the object. The object that is supposed to be objectified by or eliminated by the consciousness is also mithya. There was savishayatvam, that consciousness is possessed of object, that also is mithya. Consciousness is not mithya. Savishayatvam is mithya. Because there is no vishaya. Savishayatvam being possessed of vishaya, that exists along with vishaya. There is no vishaya, then savishayatvam also is not there. What is this? Nirvishayam, meaning objectless awareness. Jagritadau, this is waking, dream, deep sleep, at any state. Vishayakara buddhi vrittinam suna avagunthitatvat. Wherein waking, dream, deep sleep, the vrittis keep on changing. But every vritti arises as pervaded by, illumined by consciousness. In consciousness, a vritti arises. In consciousness, it is illumined. In consciousness, it subsides. So, vritti arises, exists, and subsides in consciousness, always accompanied by, pervaded by, illumined by consciousness. So, what is that sphuranam of consciousness that always accompanies every vritti at all stages? Sarvritti upasthiti vinacha sakshitaya. That consciousness can be called sakshi. Understand that no word applies in a primary sense, but since the utpatti of the vritti is known, the sthiti is known, and the Nivritti or the destruction also is known. So we can say that the consciousness eliminator of the utpatti, sthiti, vinasha of the vritti or sakshi of that. But point is, Sfuranasya ekatvasya ekasya. Whereas all the changes take place in the vrittis. The states keep on changing. The consciousness that accompanies is ever the same. Ekasya, nityasya is eternal, imperishable. Avasyam ashraya, we have to accept. When there is change then, and the change is known, you would accept that there is something that does not change, that illumines that change. So even though that consciousness is not known as an object, we know that that consciousness has to be there because something, the light has to be there because we find the objects illumined. Even though you may not objectify that light, the light is not known as an object of perception or eye seeing, but you know it is there, without which these things could not have been illuminated. तथा विषयाणां वृत्ति समकालेव स्फुरणात् विषय व्यभिचारेपि. So what we call the grahya, the vishaya, the object vyabhicharepi. Vyabhichara means now there, not there later. Means it is changing. It is created, sustained, destroyed. When this is happening, the vyabhichara is happening, change is happening, there is something avyabhichari does not change. Sfuran avyabhichara, therefore the sfuranam, that illumines this. That is avyabhichari, meaning that it is changeless, ever there. Vishaya anirupyatvat. So this is for sure. The sfuranam or consciousness that illumines the vritti is always there. What is vritti we cannot determine. It is because it's constantly changing. So its nature cannot be determined to be such and such. Meaning it's mithya. And therefore, even when the vritti appears to be there, vritti means the vishaya. Supposedly the consciousness is possessed of vishaya or object of vritti. Understand that they do not enjoy the same degree of reality. Consciousness is satyam. The so-called vritti or the grahya or the vishaya or the object cannot be determined. It is mithya, meaning it is not there even when it appears to be there. Therefore, nirvishfuranasya nirvishayatvam siddham. Therefore, sfuranam is objectless, is nirvishayam. Then going to the 9th verse. ननु आत्मावरे द्रष्टव्यः श्रोतव्यो मन्तव्यो निदिध्यासितव्यः इति श्रुत्या. The famous statement from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Atma vayare drashtavyah, hey Maitreyi, Atma must be seen. Shrotavyah must be heard. Nididyasa must be meditated upon. In each case there is tavya pratyaya, which is like a command. Atmana darshanadi karmatva. Atma must be seen, must be heard, must be meditated upon. Atma seen means what? Atma should be made the object of seeing. That's called seeing. You must go and see that. Sometimes they say you should go and see the new building, the new road, whatever is constructed. What do you mean by go and see? Meaning that that object or entity is made the object of your seeing. You understand? Swami, there is a new flower there at the back. See that. make that flower the object of your seeing. That's called seeing. So Atma must be seen, drashtavya. That means Atma must be made the object of drashti, of seeing. That's what the Shruti says. Darshanadi karmatvokte atmana. The Shruti statement seems to say that Atma should be made the karma, the object of darshana, darshanadi. Darshanam, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Atma must be made the object of seeing and listening, contemplating, meditating, etc. Thus, if Atma is seen, heard, meditated upon, if it is an object of seeing, hearing, etc., Drushyatvad, what is seen is called Drushya. Bhujangadivat, so Rasana Bhujangadivat Asatva Prapti. Tad Drishyam, Tad Jadam, Tad Mithya. Drishya means that which is illuminated by drashti, which is not self-illuminating. So it is Jadam, meaning it is Paraprakasham, it is inert. And so Mithya, because it cannot reveal itself. It is not self-existing, it is not self-shining. Meaning it depends upon something else for it to exist, for it to shine. So its existence, shining is fake, it's mithya. So if Atma also has to be made the object of drishti, darshanam, shravanam, mananam, nididhyasanam, then it falls in the category of like rasana, bhujanga. Rasana means a rope, bhujanga means a snake, in the category of rope, snake. Means it is projected. Asatva prapti iti ashankya. Just as rope, snake is asatva, meaning mithya, so also Atma would fall in the category of mithya. That's the shanka. But that's one statement of Shruti. But the Kathopanishad says ashabdam, asparsham, arupam, avyayam, tatharasam, nityam, agandhavachayat. Yad Brahma, that consciousness or Atma which is ashabdam, is not the object of hearing. Asparsham, not the object of touch. Arupam, not the object of sight. Avyayam, changeless, imperishable. Arasam, not the object of the palate. Agandhavat, not the object of the organ of smell. Nityam, eating. So this statement, Atma or Drashtavya, Shrutavya, seems to say that Atma should be made the object of Drashti, Shruti, Mati, Vijnati. But Kathopanishad says Ashabdam cannot be made the object of, it is not an object of Shravanam. Then not the object of Drashti, Darshanam. So what the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad wants us to do seems to contradict what the Kathopanishad says. Further, the same Upanishad says, Na chakshusha grhyate napi vacha nanye devahi tapasa karmanava ityadi shruti virodhat. Right away it says, Na chakshusha grhyate, Atma cannot be grasped by chakshu, cannot be made the object of seeing. Napi vacha, cannot be the object of vani, or words cannot describe in words. Where chakshu stands for all the organs of perception, vacha stands for words in all organs of action. Nanyahi devahi, not by any devatas or sense organs of the mind. Tapasa karmanava, by tapasarya, by karma also, you cannot grasp Atma. ityadi shruti virodhat. So now this discussion is for determining tatparya of the Shruti statement Atma or Drashtavya, Shrotavya, Mantavya. What's the tatparya? What is intended to be conveyed by that statement? Is it darshanam, shravanam? Is it to be taken in primary sense? If you take darshanam, shravanam in primary sense, then Atma should be made the object of darshanam, Drashtavya. Then elsewhere Upanishad says adrushtam. So arupam doesn't have form, color, therefore cannot be the object of perception by eyes. So if drashtavya hai, shrutavya hai, mantavya hai, if these words or verbs are interpreted in primary sense, then that interpretation will contradict what the Upanishad says elsewhere. So this is where the Brahma Sutra has its scope to find the samanvaya, ekavakyata. Find how all the statements actually have the same ultimate meaning. The intended meaning is the same. So intended meaning has to be determined. Where at the first sight there seems to be contradiction. Then we have to understand and see that the contradiction has to be resolved. Rupadihinasya darshanadi avishayatvat arupam, Kathopan says. Na chakshusha grihyate. Meaning that it cannot be the object of chakshu or the eyes, therefore drashtavya, atma cannot be seen. If drashtavya must be seen is taken in primary sense, then that will contradict this. Drashtavya ityadi shruti, then how do you explain drashtavya? Drushpastavya pratyaya becomes drashtavya. So tavya generally means a command that it must be seen. So if you take the tavya pratyaya in a primary sense, then that will contradict what the Shruti says elsewhere. So either you interpret those statements in a different way, or interpret this one in a different way. But the conclusion is that the consciousness is objectless. It has no object, it also cannot become an object. Therefore, Drashtavya ityadi shruti, the shruti, Drashtavya, that statement, ihar arharthena tavyena yogat. That tavya is interpreted arha, yogya. So not that atma, drashtavya means not that atma is to be seen, atma is worth seeing. Atma deserves to be seen, atma is worth seeing. So tavya is to be interpreted as arha, that it is worth seeing, should be seen. So tavyena yogat darshanadi arhat upadesha mukhena. So atma drashtavya means what? Atma. So arha. So the drashtavya has to be interpreted darshanarha. Drashtavya, little meaning is it should be seen. It should be made the object of seeing. Darshanarha means it is worth seeing. There is something that is worthy of seeing. Atma is worthy of being seen or worthy of being known. So द्रष्टव्य है दर्शनादि अर्हत्वोपदेश मुखेन. द्रष्टव्य है दर्शनार्ह है, श्रोतव्य है, मंतव्य है, निधिध्यासितव्य है, श्रवणार्ह है, मननार्ह है, निधिध्यासनार्ह है. So therefore, this statement says how Atma is worthy of being seen, of being heard, being reflected upon, being meditated upon. The worthiness of Atma is meant to be said here rather than Atma to be made an object of these kriyas or actions. So, arhatva upadesha mukhena. Why should Upanishad say Atma is worthy of being seen? Atma is worthy of being seen, not Anatma. That is what is meant there. Because Maitreyi or anybody else generally has the eyes directed towards Anatma, towards the world. Therefore, Yajnavalkya said, Atmastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Hey Maitreyi, sarvam priyam bhavati. The husband or wife or the sons or health, anything that is there. Atmastu kamaya. Understand that love you have for anything else is really nothing but love for Atma. Anything that is object of love is worthy of experiencing. So we have love for Anatma, whether it is spouse or progeny or wealth or other possessions. That's the whole life is spent. So it needs to be told that Anatma is not worthy of worshipping or worthy of courting. Atma is worthy of being courted. So by drashtavya hai darshanarha hai, say that Atma is worthy of being seen, not Anatma. Why is it necessary? Because the person is preoccupied with seeing Anatma, because the mind is directed there. Because the mind thinks that that is worthy. That's what happiness is. So when I have love for a spouse or children or anything, that is love for them. So when you say, hey, it's not love for them, it's love for Atma, that is being reflected there, understand? When you think that you love X, Y, Z, understand that in reality it is love for Atma. See this fact. Anything that is loved is an object worthy of my experiencing. So right now the objects of the world are worthy of being experienced. And that's how I spend the whole of my life. So Atmanastu kamaya. There is a kamana or love for Atma, which is what is interpreted as love for Anatma. So love that you have for Anatma is because you think that Anatma is arha or worthy. And therefore the mind is always running out towards Anatma. Says Anatma pravanata tyajanartha. तो द्रष्टव्य इत्यादि श्रुति द्रष्टव्य है, श्रोतव्य है, मंतव्य है, निध्यासितव्य है. श्रुति is not for presenting Atma as an object of seeing or hearing. So stop seeing and hearing Anatma. Atma is worth seeing, Atma is worth hearing, Atma is worth thinking about. You're all the time engaged in seeing, hearing, thinking about, meditating upon Anatma because you think that that is worthy, that is where the happiness is. So therefore, to disengage the mind from its preoccupation with Anatma and direct the mind to Atma is the purpose of the Shruti. See, this is how the Tatparya Nirnaya is done. of Dashtavya, Shrotavya, the Tatparya Nirnaya of the Shruti is done this way, where it is not done in the perhaps Brahma Sutra, etc. It is done, then also it can be mentioned here. So, Dashtavya Shruti, this is how the Vakya is. Dashtavya Shruti, Anatma Pravana Tyajanartha. Tyajanartha is for the purpose of Tyajanam, Tyaga. Of what? Anatma Pravanata, preoccupation Anatma. The Shruti is meant for giving up the preoccupation Anatma. Meaning the Atma should become the object of preoccupation of you, He Maitreyi. Itiyaha, so that is what is meant here. In the 9th word it says, Rupavattvadya Sattvana Drishyade Karmata Yatha Evam Vijnana Karmatvam Bhumno Nasti Iti Gamyate. न दृष्ट्यादेः कर्मता यथा भूम्नः. The 6th case of bhuman. Bhumnah drishtyadeः karmata na. Bhuma or Brahman or Atma is not karma the object of drishtyadeः, drishti, shruti, mati. Why is it so? Rupavattvadi asatvat. Because Bhuma or Atma doesn't have Rupa and therefore cannot be Drashtavya. Ashabdam therefore na Shrotavya. Amatam na Mantavya. Avijnana na Vijnatavya. So, na Drishtyadehe Karmata. Even though Drashtavya, Shrotavya, Mantavya seem to suggest that Atma should be made the object of Drishti, Shruti, Mati. But no, because Atma can become the object of Drishti only if it possesses Rupa or color or form. And similarly, if Atma is available for hearing, then only it can be the object of hearing. Ashabdam cannot be. That is what the Upanishad says. Therefore, this statement, Drashtavya, should not be interpreted as Atma being karma of the act of Drishti, Darshanam. Evam. So just as Atma cannot become the object of Darshanam, even in a manner similar to that, Vijnana karmatvam bhumnah nasti digamyate. Bhuma also cannot be the object of Vijnanam, object of knowledge. Because Drashti, Shruti, Mati, Dhyanam doesn't include Vijnanam. So somebody thinks that Atma is to be known, must be visualized, be the object of knowledge. So similarly, Atma cannot be the object of knowledge. So since Ashabdam, Asparsham, Arupam, Arasam, Agandham denies the Atma possessing the objectivity of the organs of perception. But that Atma cannot be object of mind or intellect also has to be understood. That Atma cannot become the object of intellect or mind. And so, even in a manner similar to that, Bhumna Vijnana Karmatvam Nasti. So just as Atma or Bhuma cannot be the karma of Drishti, etc., it also cannot be karma or object of Vijnanam or the knowledge as we understand it. Iti gamyate, this is what we conclude. So yatha comes from that's the last word of the first line, yatha. Rupatvadi asatvad na drishtyadehe karmatha yatha. Explaining that yatha drashtavya ityadi vashat na jnana karmatvam. If drashtavya interpreted in primary sense It would mean that Atma should be made the karma or object of drashti, but since it contradicts other Upanishad, therefore the statement not explained or interpreted as Atma should be made the object of darshanam. Atma is darshanara. No jnana karma. Therefore, Atma cannot be karma of drashti, shruti, mati. Evam. Similarly, now there is statement from Chandogya Upanishad. Yatra nanyat pashyati, nanyat shrunoti, nanyat vijanati, sabhuma iti. Where one does not pashyati, does not see anything, shrunoti, does not hear anything, vijana doesn't know anything. So bhuma, that's called bhuma. So bhuma is that where one does not see anything, does not hear anything, does not know anything. Idatrapi prakupanyasta shruti virodhat. So how should we interpret that statement? One does not see anything, does not hear anything, does not know anything. So one would think that you do not see anything else, but you see Atma. That you do not see anything other than Atma, do not hear anything other than Atma, do not know anything other than Atma, anyat pashyana pashyati. Anyas means other than Atma. So Atma is seen. That's called bhuma, where Atma is seen. Anyanda pashyati, Atmanam pashyati. Anyadna shrunoti, Atmanam shrunoti. Anyadna vijanati, Atmanam. That can be interpretation of that statement. Atravi, pragupanyasta shruti virodhat. But that also will contradict what we said earlier in Kathopanishad. Because na chakshusha grushyate napi vacha. The Atma cannot be made the object of chakshu, or vani, etc. So yatra anyanna pashyati. So the interpretation can be Upanishad says yatra anyat na pashyati. Yatra nanyat pashyati means yatra anyat na pashyati. That Upanishad says, so Atmaneva pashyati, anyat na pashyati. He does not see anything else, but does see the Atma. So that statement can be interpreted as Atmanam pashyati, that he sees Atma. That means Atma becomes the object of seeing or knowing. It is Svatma darshana vidhi paratva kalpana yogat. So that statement can be interpreted as an instruction to see the Atma, where one does not see anything, does not hear anything, does not know anything, can be interpreted as, hey, you should see yourself, hear yourself, know yourself. And therefore, Svatma darshana vidhiparatva kalpana yogat. That statement can be interpreted as meaning Svatma darshana vidhi, that you should see. So, anyat na pashyati, yatra atmanam pashyati, anyat na shrunoti, yatra atmanam shrunoti, anyat na vijanati, atmanam vijanati. Meaning what? Atmanam pashyed, atmanam, what is it? Shrunuyat, atmanam vijaniyat. So that is how that statement can be interpreted as Svatma darshana vidhi paratva kalpana yogat. That statement may be thought to be a vidhi or an instruction or injunction where one does not see anything else, meaning that where one sees Atma. So you should see Atma, hear Atma. So this is possible interpretation of that statement. There also pragupanyasta shruti virodhat, but that interpretation will contradict the shruti because Kathopan is very clear. Ashabdam, asparsham, na chakshusha gruhyate. There is no scope for any other interpretation. So if these Shruti statements are interpreted this way, that interpretation will contradict with what Kathopanishad says. So we should have consistency. Ekavakyata means all the statements of all the Upanishads should convey only one meaning. If one Upanishad conveys a given meaning, on the same subject matter, another Upanishad conveys a different meaning, then which meaning should we take? The eyes here say this is white color. After 10 minutes says there is yellow color. In the same eye which is pramana, means of knowledge, valid means of knowledge, the color shows me different things. Then which is the color? So Shruti is pramana. But Atma, it says one thing here. Cannot be seen, cannot be heard, and then says you must see it, you must hear it. That means that this Shruti which is pramana is giving us contradictory messages. Which one should we take? Ekavakya, therefore there must be consistency in what the Shruti says. Any pramana. Eyes must be consistent. Every day it should only reveal that today it says it is orange and tomorrow it may say it is yellow and then day after it may say white. Then what is the color? Must be consistency. That's the reason why it is necessary that all the statements of all the Upanishads are understood consistently, conveying only one message. That's what Brahma Sutra does. Although Brahma Sutra is interpreted by Shankaracharya, because other Acharyas have interpreted same Brahma Sutra in their own way. But Acharya Shankaracharya ji has interpreted Brahma Sutra to mean that all the Upanishads convey only one thing. Brahma is the subject matter. One non-dual Brahman. Therefore, bhumnah brahmanah vijnana karmatvam nasti digamyate eva vijnana karmatvam bhumno nasti digamyate. Second line. So just as since Atma is not possessed of rupam, rasam, etc., therefore cannot become the object of seeing, tasting, etc., similarly also Atma cannot become the object of vijnana or knowledge. Evam. Iti gammete nischiyate. Gammete means nischiyate. This is what? This is a conclusion we arrive at. This is the conclusion or determination that we make. So that way objectless awareness, one without a second, no object, therefore it has nothing to see, itself cannot be seen, because it is my very self, self-effulgent, self-revealing, and therefore doesn't have to be seen. Otherwise, if it's not self-revealing, has to be made the object of knowledge. As everything else must be made the object of knowledge. Atma does not fall in that category. Iti navamam sukshmata vyapita prakaranam. Sukshmata vyapite jneye. This is how the prakaranam begins. So the prakaranam is called sukshmata vyapita prakaranam. Navamam prakaranam. Now continuing with the 10th chapter. Dushi Swarupa Paramartha Darshana Prakaranam. Because that Prakaranam begins, Dushi Swarupam Gaganopanam begins the word Dushi Swarupa. Therefore, that Prakaranam is called Dushi Swarupa Prakaranam. There is no other formal, nomenclature of these chapters. Like Jnana Vijnana Yoga, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga, etc. So whatever the chapter begins with becomes the title of the chapter. Here the Tikakara says, Idanim Purva Prakarane Yuktya Vyasthapitam Atmana Nirvishaya Jnana Swabhavatvam. Purva Prakarane, the Prakarana that we just discussed. Yuktya, by yukti, by reasoning. Vyasthapitam atmana nirvishaya jnana svabhavatvam. Atma nirvishaya jnana svabhavaha. The Atma svabhava possesses the nature of nirvishaya jnanam. The Atma is objectless awareness. There is no object for the Atma, nor does Atma become object of anything. Both ways. So, yuktya vyavasthapitam. This was established or arrived at by yukti, by reasoning, of course with the help of Shruti also. Atma nirvishaya svabhajnanatvam swanubhava vinayana prakatayan. Now the Acharya reveals that Atma is nirvishaya jnana svabhavaha. So anubhava abhinayana, by revealing his own anubhava. Abhinaya means putting it in words here. Expressing his experience in words. Acharya confirms what was arrived at by reasoning in the previous chapter, that Atma, nature of Atma is nirvishaya jnana, objectless awareness. Neither Atma has an object, nor does Atma become an object of knowledge. Nirvishaya avishayatvenaiva Atma jnanam bhavati iti dhraitum. Very important. Avishayatvenaiva Atma jnanam bhavati. Atma jnanam bhavati. The self-knowledge takes place, but avishayatva, not as an object. In that knowledge, Atma does not become object of knowledge. Meaning subject-object duality is not there. Where the duality is there, of course, then the object is known as an object. In the knowledge of Atma, the subject-object duality is not there. Therefore, in that knowledge, Atma is not known as object of knowledge. Still it is known as the very self. So, avishayatvaina. Atma is known not as a vishaya, avishaya, as a self. Atma jnanam bhavati. That is how the self-knowledge takes place. Iti dhraitum. To make that firm, prakaranantaram arabhate drashishvarupamiti. For that, the next prakarana is begun, commenced here, beginning with the word drashishvarupam. So let us see the first verse, the famous verse. Drashishvarupam gaganopamam param sakrad vibhatam tvajamekam aksharam alepakam sarvagatam yadadvayam tadeva chaham satatam vimukta om. So tadeva chaham satatam, tadeva aham satatam, that is what I always am. Therefore vimuktaha, I am ever liberated, ever free. Om confirms that as a one's own experience. What is that? By what said nature? Drushi swarupam, swarupam, of the nature of drushi, shruti, jnati. Drushi means consciousness. Shruti, mati, jnati, all of them are the abstract nouns. Therefore, it means not consciousness. So, drushi swarupam, I am the swarupa, nature of drushi or consciousness. Seeing, hearing, thinking, without the seer, hearer, thinker. Seeing without the seer and seen. Hear without hearer and heard. That is just the consciousness. Gaganopamam, comparable space, all pervading, and many other aspects of space. Param, the limitless. Sakrut vibhatam, ever shining, self-revealing. Ajam, ekam, aksharam, birthless, one, non-dual, imperishable, alevakam, not ever tainted, ever pure, sarvagatam, all pervasive, advayam, non-dual, tadevacha, that alone I am, satam, always, not now. Even when I was ignorant, that's what I was. Satatam tadevacha aham, vimukta, therefore I am ever liberated. Om. So टीकाकार है सकृत विभातम एकदा एव स्फुरितम. Sakrut means once, in fact. So sakrut once, means it just shines once and then stops shining. There also you can say sakrut. Or ekada eva visphuritam, shines only once, not second time. Means it is always shining. Shines once and then second time, third time, then one can be with reference to 2 and 3. Sakrut means once. This once is not with reference to second, third. It says ever, it always shines. So ekada eva, not ekada eva visfuranam. It is shining once, always. Sada eva spashtam bhasamanam. The meaning is, yavat means the meaning is sada eva spashtam bhasamanam. Bhasamanam, always shining, spashtam, very clearly, without any doubt. Jagrana swapna sushupya sfutaram ya samvidu jrumbhate. It always reveals itself, waking, dream, deep sleep, all the time. The consciousness. Dushi Swarupam, Gaganopamam Param, Sakrut Vivadam, Tvajam Ekam Aksharam. Yet Evam Vidam Aksharam. Aksharam, the immutable, is the word for Brahma. That Aksharam I am. Aksharam which is like this is what I am. So that's how they interpret it. Yet Evam Vidam Aksharam, Tadevaham Satatam Bhavami. Because Aksharam is used for Brahman. And so here, elsewhere in Mundakopanishad, in Brahadaranyaka so here also Aksharam means Brahman. Yaksharat, Paratah, Paraha, etc. Tadev aham, so then the Tadeva chaham satatam. Tadeva aham satatam bhavami. That Aksharam, that immutable, that is ever shining, self-effulgent. That aham bhavami. That's what I am. This is his experience. Acharya is describing the experience. That's called abhinayana. He gives words to his experience. Tadevaham satatam bhavami. That alone I always am. Ata vimukta. Therefore, vimukta. Always liberated. Not liberated now. If I am liberated now, which means that I was bound earlier. Vimuktascha vimuchyate. What is liberated becomes liberated. Knows that I am liberated. Om. Om iti abhyanujñātham. Abhyanujñā means that concurring. Will you go there? Om means I will go. Will you do this? Om means I will do. That's similarly, Om. The scriptures say that is in keeping with my experience. I also concur with that. Ukta Swarupam Omkara Dvara Moksha Buddhi Abhyaktam Bhavati iti Suchetam Omkara Nirdeshaha. Ukta Swarupam. This Swarupa of Akshara, immutable Brahman, which is Drushi Swarupam, Gaganopamam, Param, Sakrut Vivadam, Omkara Dvara. For knowing that Swarupa Atma, Omkara means. Omkara becomes a means of knowing the Swarupa Atma. As Mandukya and Mundakananda Upanishad say, that first Omkara becomes the object of meditation or you worship Brahman through Omkara, and then Omkara by analysis reveals the nature of Brahman. So first Omkara becomes the object of worship. That very same Omkara then becomes the object of knowledge or the means of knowledge. Ukta Swarup Omkara Dwara Moksha Buddhi Avyaktam Bhavati. How do I know the Swarup of mine? Taram Doshi Swarupam Gaganopamam Param Sakut Vivhadam Omkara Dwara. So Vimukta Om. The purpose of concluding this Om is not only that it concurs, but says Om is the means of this knowledge. Moksha Buddhi Avyaktam Bhavati. The Aksharam, the immutable Brahman, becomes manifest in the Buddhi of the Mumukshu, where Omkara becomes means of the manifestation of Brahman in the Buddhi of Mumukshu. It is Suchaitam Omkara Nirdesha. The Omkara is a means of knowledge. Omkara has the ability, capacity, potential to make you see this fact about yourself, to suggest that is the purpose of saying Om. Nanu na akashavad alevakatvam dushehe sangachate. In doubt? Dushehe akashavad alevakatvam na sangachate. Gagano param param sakut vibhatam alepakam sarvagatam. Akash is sarvagatam, all pervasive. Alepakam, always untainted. Akasha, the space, does not get tainted by anything else, even when it appears to be tainted. And that is the drishya of the consciousness, drushe na sangachate. It is not feasible that drishya or consciousness also is ever unpolluted, unaffected like the space. Because there is nothing to pollute the space. But there is something to pollute consciousness. Drusha sambandhat, coming back to the same thing, but after all you call it drushi. Drushi swarupoham. There is a drushi, meaning the drashta I am. When you say consciousness is drushi swarupam, I mean, there must be drishya, because with reference to drishya alone, the drushi or seeing or seer, etc. So seeing I am, the seeing calls for the object of seeing, calls for seer also. So when there is a duality of seer, seen, seeing, how can the seeing be unpolluted, because there are other two entities which will affect it? With that which is non-dual, has nothing to pollute. So dushya sambandhat, dushi, the seeing, presupposes the object of seeing. Then only you can call it seeing. How can you call seeing when there is nothing to see? So when consciousness is said to be drushi, seeing, it presupposes also the object of seeing. Then that duality, ashuddhi, vikriyadi, dosha sambhavat, the drishyam is limited. Limited means it is impure. And if the drushi and drushya enjoy the same degree of reality, then the drishyam will affect the drushi. If drishyam is impure, being limited, it will also affect and make drushi also impure. So ashuddhi, vikriya, drushi will change, and drushya is subject to change. The object being what it is, limited, otherwise it can't become an object of perception. Anything that is objective has to be limited. So the consciousness will have contact with limited. And therefore, limited is changing. Therefore, if the object of consciousness changes, the consciousness also will undergo corresponding change. Is it not so? I'm conscious of that color, then my consciousness is qualified by color. If I change a different object, then the consciousness will also change. So if there is drishyam, if you call this drushi, seeing, a presupposed object of seeing. Object of seeing is limited, changing, impure. And therefore it also makes the drushi, the consciousness, changing, impure. So ashuddhi, vikriyadi, dosha sambhavat, these doshas or defects or blemishes will come in drushi or consciousness also. Iti ashankya. So very first verse where drushi swarupam is said will cause this shanka. Drushe atma swarupatvat, it says no, drushi is atma, not some third entity. Even the word is used as drushi, what it means is atma. And so it is atma swarupatvat. Drushe atma swarupatvat tasya cha nitya shuddhatvade shutyava nirdharanat. If drushi is atma swarup, atma is determined by Shruti as nitya shuddha buddha mukta. Nitya shuddhatvade shutyava nirdharanat. Atma, there is no question that it is nitya shuddha buddha mukta svabhava. But drushi we do not know. So if drushi is atma swarupa, then it is also nitya shuddha buddha mukta. Then nitya, shuddha, etc. cannot be there. Nirdharanat. If drushi is shown to be atma swarupa, then you are concerned that it may get polluted, etc. There is no scope. Ma evam, therefore, these doubts that you raise have no scope if drushi is atma swarupam. The abhipretya, this is abhipraya. Shruti siddhamartham prakatayati. And so the meaning that is drushe atma swarupatvat. Shrutyeva nirdharanat. Shrutya alone has ascertained that drushi or consciousness is atma. Therefore, shruti siddhamartham, the artha or the purport which is the intended meaning, which is very clearly established by the Shruti. Prakatayati, the author or the poet, he reveals there in the next verse, so says, Dushistu shuddhoham avikriyatmakaha nameste kaschid vishayasvabhavataha Purastirashchordhudavadascha sarvataha Sampurna bhuma tvaja atmani sthitaha. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamada Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari